Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's bonus. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadomley. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. There are stories of a strange creature prowling the foothills of Fresno County, of a strange creature with long, gray, mangy hair and a face of an ape or a baboon, and has both human-like hands and feet. It always appears to be sick, coughing, or foaming at the mouth. Legend calls it devil ape or devil fang, but lately it has gone by the name of Watts Valley wolf ape, as it has been seen near the Watts Valley Cemetery. There are stories aplenty of the wolf ape, that the first Native Americans that came over the Bering Strait coexisted with the creature, and that there are even drawings of strange creatures that traveled with the Native Americans. When the Europeans came, they found these odd drawings, but no signs of the wolf ape. There's a story that legendary photographer Ansel Adams was taking pictures in Yosemite one day when a pack of wolf apes came upon him while he was in his tent, and he had to stay there for safety. An even more peculiar story is that the wolf ape entered a single-room schoolhouse one day and terrorized the students and teacher. The children piled up their desks together and climbed up to safety of the rafters while the teacher was able to lock himself into a closet. The wolf ape tore through the children's desks to get to their lunches. Finally, after getting its fill, it left. Yet another odd story describes a preacher who shot a wolf ape back in the 1950s, claiming it to be a pet of Satan. He hung it up on the church walls, and the story claims the animal to be at least 10 feet long. Apparently, the preacher got into a bit of trouble as the wolf ape continued to hang on the church for several weeks, and understandably, the place began to smell foul. So the preacher sold it to a traveling circus freak show, and with the money he made off of it, he traveled up to San Francisco with a dream of starting his own church up there. He was murdered soon after, and his body was so badly mutilated that it took several months to identify. Whispers of a curse of the wolf ape was the cause of the preacher's death. Things were quiet for a while, but around the mid-1990s, a wolf ape was seen at Bass Lake, drinking water from the small lake. Interesting enough, people mistook it for a hairy man who happened to walk on all fours. The most recent and detailed story was recanted on a local Fresno radio station. There were two witnesses, a man and his uncle, who were hunting for garnet near Watts Valley Cemetery when a wolf ape came out of the bushes. The creature was described as 6 feet long, gray hair, mangy dog with a face like a baboon whose eyes were flat on its face like a human's. It opened its mouth, but only to moan, and escaped its widened maw, and then made a strange sound like a cough. Both witnesses began to run from the creature as it began to chase them. The man threw his lunch at the creature, but this only stopped momentarily. It continued to stalk them over the hills. and the two witnesses hopped over fences and ran through pastures trying to escape this creature. Cows fled as it chased the two men. Finally, they found themselves in the Watts Valley Cemetery and hid behind some tombstones, hoping to lose the beast. Unfortunately, it caught their scent and started to come towards them, when, in a moment of genius, the uncle threw some cinnamon-flavored chewing gum near the beast, hoping the scent would distract it. It worked, and the beast was momentarily occupied. Soon after that, a caretaker for the small cemetery arrived and offered to give the two men a ride back to their car, several miles away. All three watched the strange creature for a few more minutes in the safety of the caretaker's truck before it went away. Not much is known about this creature. Theories from failed genetic experiments escaping to another type of Bigfoot has been discussed. Whatever it may be, it seems to be sick, and if cornered, it makes this a dangerous creature. The second half of today's first part of the upload. Being a Southern California native, I can't help but have my curiosity piqued when I hear unusual stories about my home state, especially the southern half. I ran across the Dogwoman of Watts while researching sightings in Los Angeles. I'd not heard of the Dogwoman of Watts, but maybe my cousin has, who lives in Watts. It turns out that she has not, and said she'd ask around. Her neighbor, Clifton, presently in his 70s, witnessed the Dogwoman of Watts. I asked my cousin if Clifton was open to talk about his sighting, and if so, to call me. Online resources concerning the Dogwoman of Watts are scarce. However, from what I could find, I summarized in 1961, Watts, California, a neighborhood located in the southern region of the greater Los Angeles area. The Watts Police Department began receiving phone calls about a frightening creature roaming the streets. The first sightings of the animal occurred around 3 p.m., and both sightings, as well as phone calls, would continue for the next 3 to 4 hours. Citizens reported seeing a creature with the body of a large dog, but with the face of a woman. Police initially thought it was a prank call or a drug-induced hallucination, but as the calls kept coming in, they began to take it seriously. I had a brief conversation with Clifton, who said he was not feeling well. I asked what he could remember. He stated it was summer, and on Friday. He got off of work early and was walking home when he heard a woman scream. Clifton saw a woman pulling a child through the front gate by his arm. Clifton laughed. He thought the boy done fucked up for his mama to be tugging on his arm like that. Clifton continued walking and saw them pointing at something across the street. He said the woman began yelling for her neighbor to come and take a look. Clifton looked and saw a huge dog walking towards him on the sidewalk. Clifton remembers that it had shaggy, dark brown or black fur. The creature had an unnaturally side-to-side gait, like it was stumbling. That's when Clifton noticed the dog's face. Clifton expressed how scared he was by this. He quickly crossed the street and was extremely grateful the woman let him into the yard. Clifton, the woman, and her son all watched the creature from behind the gate. Clifton claimed the beast paid them no mind as it shuffled by and down the sidewalk. The woman and her son were both rattled, and Clifton admitted he was pretty spooked as well. It was Clifton who suggested they call the police. Before I got off the phone with him, Clifton stated he heard rumors the creature spoke to a man, a notorious pimp from the neighborhood. The man was later found stabbed to death. Clifton wasn't sure if it was a rumor or if it was true. He recalls hearing the pimp was found dead before this happened. I thanked Clifton for his time. I might call him later this week, ask how he's feeling, and if he remembers anything more. About the Dogwoman of Watts. In theorizing about the Dogwoman of Watts, I came up with some probabilities. If the rumor Clifton heard is true, the Dogwoman of Watts spoke to a pimp. That adds an element of supernatural. However, I will begin with my less supernatural probabilities. The wolf-aped Fresno County, California, and in particular the Watts Valley area, interesting connection, is about 250 miles north of Watts of the greater Los Angeles area and home to what is called wolf ape. The Yokut tribe had stories and artwork featuring the wolf-bodied creature with the face of an ape long before Europeans came. The Yokut state the creature always appears sick, forever coughing and wheezing. Yokut history marks a dwindling presence of the wolf ape before Europeans arrived. European encounters with the wolf ape happened primarily during the California Gold Rush, 1848 to 1855. The beast was sighted as far as north as Oregon and far south as Arizona. The Dogwoman of Watts shares many parallels with the wolf ape. The dog or wolf-like body and, as Clifton recalls, an ape's face. An unnatural gait or stumbling support the Yokut claim of the wolf ape appearing to be sick. Humans and animals who are sick tend to shuffle or walk with an imbalance. Watts is only 250 miles south of Fresno, a 3 to 4 hour drive. Wolf ape sightings in both Oregon and Arizona demonstrate this creature's capable of travel. To me, the wolf ape is highly likely candidate for the identity of the Dogwoman of Watts. But I have a couple of other probabilities left. Human-animal genetic experimentation, Southern California for all its dark secrets. One secret is perhaps best summed up as a vile. Southern California has a human trafficking problem. The slums of LA have long been used by the U.S. government agencies, CIA in particular, and private corporations, in procuring human test subjects for cruel scientific research and experimentation. The CIA ran declassified before the congressional hearing MK-Ultra program targeted prostitutes, homeless people, people with mental disorders, primarily schizophrenia, living or working on Skid Row for sinister mind control experiments. Individuals were kidnapped and regularly administered extreme doses of LSD while locked in coffin-sized boxes for weeks, put through horrible physical torture as well as being drowned multiple times a day. These poor souls were psychologically shattered and to develop multiple personalities. Each personality would be separately trained in specialized skills and could be brought forth using specific command words. Hey, that's what the CIA has admitted to. Imagine what they won't. MK-Ultra's success rate was low. What happened to the individuals the CIA considered failed test subjects? Evidence suggests they were sold to private corporations, Dow, Merrick, GE, etc., for further human experimentation. I don't believe it to be a stretch. The Dogwoman of Watts may have been an escaped human-animal genetic experiment. Watts, California was part of the CIA dragnet for human trafficking. The surrounding ruins and infrastructure on privately owned land made the differentiation between discrete worksite or abandoned building difficult, as well as problematic to investigate. This makes the hiding a secret research facility in plain sight possible, and keeping labs near designated abduction grounds cuts down on transportation issues. If the Dogwoman of Watts did escape such a facility, it could explain her sudden appearances and subsequent vanishing, as she would have been close and quickly recaptured. I believe I could soon support an argument that LA is or was once the home of a secret genetic testing lab, not dissimilar to Plum Island, and who used U.S. citizens to test subjects. Avenging spirits, skinwalker, or similar magic worker, bruja, sorcerer, priests. My last idea is rooted in the paranormal, and given a possibility should the rumor Clifton heard be true. According to the stories, the Dogwoman of Watts had spoken to a pimp who was later found dead. In 1961, Watts was home to a large African American population. As such, the religions of voodoo, Various forms of Orisha worship and Palo Mayumbi had footholds within the community. I can't speak to Orisha worship, however, from the perspective of Voodoo and Palo Mayumbi, I can speak with authority. Followers of both Voodoo and Palo Mayumbi can petition spirits to seek retribution on their behalf. In particular, priests of Palo Mayumbi grant the spirit of a human the talents of various animals, and send them empowered ghosts to perform tasks. One such spirit or empowered ghost might have been sent to avenge someone exploited or worship by the pimp. Numerous problems arise with this postulation. The creature appeared physical and was seen by many. Spirits are almost never seen, and when they are, generally it is by only one, maybe two people. The spirit is often seen as an apparition, not a physical, tangible, and fleeting. The Dogwoman of Watts seems to have been solid in her presence, sustained for 3 hours. Keeping in the vein of the supernatural, it is possible the Dogwoman of Watts was a skinwalker or similar magic worker, who through sorcery means assumed the form of a large dog-bodied creature and issued a death curse to the pimp. Use the term skinwalker applied loosely. The skinwalker, or Yi Natalushi, is distinctly Navajo and is overused and misappropriated term to describe any type of Native American shapeshifter. LA was home to both Chumash and Tongva tribes, along with a plethora of surrounding tribes, their descendants still living in LA. We don't know the context in which each tribe viewed magic and shapeshifting. Skinwalkers of Navajo lore are primarily evil. Other tribes might see their brand of skinwalker as a protector, while the Navajo skinwalker might have traveled to Watts to speak to the pimp. I find it more likely, assuming the Dogwoman of Watts was a shapeshifter, the culprit was a Native American magic worker with ancestral lands tied to LA, meting out punishment for someone who could not. In regards to the Dogwoman of Watts, I find the avenging spirit and skinwalker postulations the least probable, but enough parallels of both exist that I feel it's possible, however remote. If Clifton remembers anything more about the Dogwoman of Watts, I will share it with you. That is very creepy. And it makes a lot of sense. LA is huge, and it's kind of a melting pot of people, just like New York City. But LA being bigger, having more area and buildings to use to hide underground secret laboratories by the government to create these abominations, could be possible. Or, yeah, it could be some sort of shapeshifter. Or, you know what, it could be even just the Dogman, possibly with some sort of, please, I'm not saying this to be rude or anything, but a possible retardation gene or whatever. Retardation does happen in human beings. Why wouldn't it happen in the animal culture or animal culture, whatever. My brain is really messed up today, guys, so I apologize. But who knows? I for one kind of like both. I like the spiritual part, but yeah, the government does some really, really messed up stuff. And, maybe it just, instead of this Dogwoman of Watts escaping, maybe it was purposely let out to see how people would react. I don't know. It's pretty creepy, though. Anyway, moving on, alright? Today's second part of the upload is kind of a theory with some scientific background to it. As you know, those of you who listen to my channel, possibly more than likely listen to Dark Waters' channel. And he and I have had some really great conversations. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a very genuine person, and I have a lot of respect for him. A lot of respect, actually. And he's got some theories where he believes these things travel. And what they do is they travel the East Coast and kind of just juke it down the coast there, cut through some kind of Midwestern states, if you want to call it that, and goes into Central America, South America. These caves that I'm going to share with you were just recently found, and these could be the homes of these migrating dogmen that travel back and forth from South America to the United States. Check this out. Hundreds of tunnels which date back at least 10,000 years have been discovered in Brazil. Some of the tunnels feature mysterious claw marks on the walls. There is no geological process in the world that produces long tunnels with circular cross-section which branch and rise and fall with claw marks on the walls, says a geologist. I've seen dozens of caves that have inorganic origins, and in these cases, it's very clear that digging animals had no role in their creation. Experts in Brazil have discovered hundreds of underground tunnels which date back over 10,000 years. Interestingly, experts believe that these mysterious tunnels were not carved by human, but by an extinct species. The discovery was made by Henrik Theodor Frank, a geologist at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, one of the largest federal universities in Brazil. As Henrik was driving on the National Novo Hamburgo Highway, he noticed a strange hole of around 1 meter in diameter at a construction site, which caught his attention. Since he was in a hurry to get home, he didn't stop. However, a few weeks later, he went back to the same place with his family, when he stopped and asked them to wait for a moment in the car while he investigated the tunnels. I noticed that it was a tunnel, about 70 centimeters high and a few meters in height. The interior was full of scratches, explains Theodore Frank to the National Geographic. When I got home, I looked for an explanation on the internet, but I didn't find anything. Since then, I've heard that the tunnels are huge anthills, or that they were created by Indians, Jesuits, slaves, revolutionaries, and even bears. Some talk about some great mythological serpent which dug the tunnels. Trying to get to the bottom of the mystery, Theodore Frank eventually sent some photographs to a member of the Brazilian Society of Speleology, or spelunking, who responded by sending an article about paleoburrowers, tunnels excavated by any type of living organism in the geological age, for example a worm in the Cambrian, a mollusk, or a rat in the Pleistocene. I didn't know there were such things as paleoburrowers, says Frank. I'm a geologist, a professor, and I had never heard of them. So, who or what could have dug those terrifying labyrinth tunnels with their walls covered in scratches? When you explore the burrows, you sometimes have the feeling that there is a creature waiting for you after the next curve, as if it were the lair of a prehistoric animal, says Frank in the article published by Discovery. Certainly these tunnels were not created by the natives of Brazil. The Indians who lived in Brazil before the arrival of Europeans did not know about the existence of iron and therefore had no tools to dig through hard rock, which these tunnels were dug, explains National Geographic. Curiously, there are hundreds of these tunnels all over Brazil. I personally believe they were excavated by land sloths, a group of mammals that became extinct in the area about 10,000 years ago, says Frank. There are large tunnels about 2 meters high and 4 meters wide that were undoubtedly excavated by sloths. We don't know the specific species, but surely the largest ones were too big to dig. We also don't know what the function of the paleo burrows is. Perhaps the climate is an explanation. It was drier and hotter than today, and the tunnels were isothermal. But this can hardly explain the complex system of tunnels, several hundred meters long, which were most likely inhabited by groups of creatures, animals, sloths, armadillos, whatnot. The roofs and walls of many tunnels are polished, probably thanks to the friction of the animal's fur, which moved through the tunnels for decades, even centuries, concluded Frank. So if a 90-pound animal living today digs 16 inches by 20-foot burrow, what would have dug a one 5-foot wide and 250 feet long, says Frank. There is no explanation. No predators, no climate, no humidity. I don't really know. However, as noted by Discovery, another mystery is the strange geographic distribution of the tunnels. These so-called paleo burrows are common in the southern parts of Brazil, in the states of Rio Grande do Sul and Santa Catarina. They are, so far, almost unknown just to the south of Uruguay. Furthermore, experts note that very few of them have been discovered in the northern parts of Brazil, and only a handful of possible burrows would have been found in other South American countries. Well, there you have it, folks. Today's bonus. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that keeps the channel growing and going, and what gives folks like all of us a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.